but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good afternoon, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, live with Ross Gregory this afternoon. Good afternoon, Ross.
Afternoon, Steve. Afternoon, everyone.
Good to see you, mate. As always, an hour of Newcastle United chat. If anyone's got any questions, stick them in the chat and we will endeavour to get to them. But as always, we'll look back on the weekend's events, and I've described it on the shows since the match as a game of two halves, Ross. It was the proverbial game of two halves, wasn't it?
It certainly was. You get there, you go after the Everton game, after Spurs, you go into games now, confident, thinking it's all going to be plain sailing. But first half wasn't quite that way, was it? And the second half was obviously a much improved performance. But yeah, I suppose at this point it's all about results. It's all about wins and getting those 3 points and clinching the spot in the Champions League, which is coming ever closer down the line. So results are all important, and thankfully they managed to get over the line.
And I mean, it shows as well that Eddie Howe, I mean, we know this anyway, but he's not afraid to make changes. And Anthony Gordon had a pretty good first half. We missed Longstaff again. We've covered that on this show in previous games where he's missed, but ultimately he isn't afraid to make a change. And despite Gordon having a pretty good first half, he took him off, brought Isak on, and that changed the game and won the game for us.
Yeah, I think he's. You're right. Eddie Howe's shown that he can be very proactive. He showed against, I think it was Brentford. At half time when it wasn't going so well, he's able to make those changes early. It always helps when you've got a strong bench, though, Steve. When you've got options on the bench, it's one thing getting in at half time and looking around the rest of the change room and thinking, well, how can I change this? How can I affect this game? But when you've got players on the bench of the caliber that Newcastle have had in recent weeks, bringing on a Callum Wilson or an Isak or a Miggy Almiron or someone like an Elliot Anderson, even who showed against Forest, or he can do from the bench. When you've got those options, certainly in attacking areas, the attacking threat off the bench to be able to change it, it must be a real bonus for Eddie Howe. But to be fair, everything that he's touching at the minute is pretty much turning to gold, isn't it? So he's getting all these substitutions spot on, even when there's a slight concern over a team selection. He always comes up trumps. So he's not afraid to make those changes. He's been very bold and brave, and they're paying off for him.
Anthony Gordon, I mean, I've seen a few negative column inches. I've also seen a lot of negative stuff on Twitter about him. This isn't an Eddie Howe player. This is a player who, is going to cause an argument in an empty room, that kind of stuff. He's a good player. He just needs a summer under Eddie Howe. He's I think we covered this last week, Ross. Give him time. Give the kid time. Don't judge him now. Look at what Eddie Howe's done with players who were completely written off, like Joe Linton and Jacob Murphy and Miggy Almiron. Players that this time last year people wouldn't have batted an eyelid if they'd said, well, we're going to sell them in the summer. Now, if you suggested that, people would be up in arms. So, Anthony Gordon's clearly shown me signs that he's going to be a top player for Newcastle. And certainly, give him a summer under Eddie. Who knows what we'll see next year.
I think that's absolutely right, Steve. I think you've got to remember he's been at the club 3-4 months tops. He's still getting used to new surroundings. He's still getting used to new teammates. He'll get used to a different way of playing. He wasn't necessarily in the greatest run of form before he joined Newcastle. Anyhow, he's been affected by some of the issues and situations going on at Everton, and he's not been able to produce his best form while he was there. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get up to speed, to understand exactly where he fits in that system, where he fits in the team and in the role that Eddie Howe wants wants him to play. But Eddie Howe's put a lot of trust in Anthony Gordon, and he's got a lot of faith in him. He's a player that he's tried to sign before January when Newcastle brought him in. He went back to him. He obviously clearly rates him highly. He thinks that he can offer something. And look, you can see the raw materials are there with Anthony Gordon. He's quick, he's pacey, he's brave on the ball. He'll offer a threat in behind. He works hard. He's got a bit of character about him, a bit of personality about him. You don't just want, for me, you don't just want, shy, retiring types in a change room. You need different types of personalities to make that team. But will Anthony Gordon be a success at Newcastle? I don't know. I haven't got a crystal ball, but it won't be for if he isn't, it won't be for the lack of trying, it won't be for the lack of effort that Eddie Howe shows him. And you're absolutely right. Once Eddie Howe is got to grips with what Joe Linton, Miguel are on, Fabian Scher's another one, Sean Longstaff, players who at times have been written off, at times out of the team. He knows what he wants to do with players. It took Alexander Isak a little bit of time to get up. Hit the ground running with his goal against Liverpool, but then there was injuries and disruption and everything else like that. He needed to get himself up to a certain level before Eddie Howe kind of trusted him fully in the role that he was playing. And it'll be the same with Gordon. Once he gets a good pre-season under his belt, hopefully he'll come back absolutely flying in the summer in July and August, and we see the best of him. But Eddie Howe really rates him. Eddie Howe really trusts him and thinks he's got a great player on his hands there. And it'd be a strange, mad old fan, I think, who would go against Eddie Howe at this point in time, given everything that he's done over the last 18 months.
Yeah, Gordon makes the point that you've just said as well. Darren, Gordon comes from Everton, which was a mess. He had to deal with death threats to him and his family. He needs time to settle in, which, I would agree. And I think there's a great player in there, and I think he will come good. And I think it's a good signing at a really good price. And, we will wait and see. But cut out the stuff on Twitter. This is the nightmare. A lot of people just go completely over the top. And, fair play to Eddie. He took him off at the right time and made the change, which, of course, meant that we saw Isak and Wilson again together. And what a combination they are, Ross. What a combination they are. And I think, again, it's Wilson who seems to be suffering at the moment by having to come on as a super sub. But it's working for Eddie Howe, and it's working for us at this moment in time, isn't it?
It is. Look, you can only pick 11 from the start, and when you've got a stronger squad, when you've got so many options now, that there's always going to be one or two or three or four who were a little bit put out by being left on the subs bench, who aren't included in the starting 11. And you want every player to want to start. You want everybody to play. You don't want players who are just happy coming and picking their coin up and happy, getting splinters in the backside. You want hungry and determined players. And what you need as well from that, it is a squad game these days. You can make 5 subs now. That's, as much as anything else, it's a huge tactical advantage if you can have players coming off the bench who can influence and impact games. So Callum Wilson will want to start every game, as he should do, and that's how he should be feeling. He was unlucky not to start, I suppose, on Sunday after his goal scoring exploits against Everton in midweek. But he just he showed what he's worth. He sniffs chances out. He's alive in that 18-yard box, in that 6-yard box. He gets different goals in some ways to Isak. I think they do. I think they can complement each other. We've seen Isak score a couple of tap-ins, but he's a different type of player, I think. Callum Wilson's sometimes maybe he's a little bit more of a poacher in and around that 6-yard box. So look, it's a fantastic headache, I suppose, for Eddie Howe to have. Isak's that talented a player. He can play in 2 or 3 different positions. For me, he can play as a 9, as a 10, or even as a kind of wide forward as well, depending on the match and the circumstances. So there's certainly room for the two of them to play together. And I do think that we might see between now and the end of the season a couple more examples of the pair of them playing together with Isak. Maybe he's on that left hand side, which he showed he can operate in, with his 2 assists over the last couple of games, and maybe it's Callum Wilson through the middle. So look, they're fantastic players, and it's a great headache for Eddie Howe to have choosing between those two.
It is. Great question from Ian as well. He says, do you think Eddie would play Wilson and Isak together if we had another number 9 forward to come off the bench? And this is in response to a few people in the chat saying that, it would be daft really, from our perspective to do that, because then we wouldn't have a threat playing. There it is, Dan. People need to realise if we start Wilson and Isak together, we've got no striker to come off the bench, so we could spend 30 minutes with zero energy up front. It's a dilemma for Eddie Howe, which he has to manage at the moment. But yeah, do you think he'd play them together if there was another striker on the bench that we could bring?
I think he wouldn't. I think he'll still play. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays them together at all between now and the end of the season. Might not be against Arsenal at the weekend, but in one of the games, I'm fairly certain that they'll start together. I understand what people are saying. It does limit your options off the bench, but then you've still got potentially, I don't know, if you play a front 3 of, let's say, Jacob Murphy on the right, Isak on the left, and Callum Wilson through the middle. You've still then got Anthony Gordon, Miguel Almiron, Elliot Anderson, ASM when he gets back fit. You've still got 3 or 4 options there who can come on and give fresh energy in those forward positions. You could take Callum Wilson off and put Isak through the middle and for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and bring on a Gordon or a Miggy or an ASM. So there will be plenty of options. I think they'll start between now and the end of the season. I think there'll be at least one game where the 2 of them will start up front together.
Yeah, Geordie Toonvalley says, I wouldn't start Isak and Wilson just yet. Just one to start, one on the bench to change things when required. It makes our bench stronger. We need another forward for cover until then. We need to keep doing what we are doing. Troll says, I have to say they should play together against Arsenal, so we have the outlet of Isak, in my opinion. Lots of interesting points about that one, and again, it's one to watch over the course of the next few months. Ian also asks, what's your thoughts on the reports of a new series deal for 4 more episodes? I think it's a great deal if it's 10 million is rumoured. I mean, it's great news financially for Newcastle if they're getting money for a camera crew following them around. I've got to reserve judgment, though. I haven't seen the first one yet, although the rumour has it that Amanda is the star of the show. Certainly box office is what I've heard. What's your views? I mean, it's money for nothing, isn't it?
It is. I think you've got to reserve judgment. I think we'll all be looking forward to seeing what it looks like when it comes out. You've got to reserve judgment on these things because, my understanding is that there isn't the element of editorial control on this that other clubs have had with theirs, and that'll produce probably a different version. Some of the documentaries, behind the scenes stuff that you've seen has been quite sanitized. It's been quite PR like and that sort of show, if you like, that sort of series. I think this one could be a bit different, and I think I don't think Newcastle are going to get stitched up and everything's all positive at the minute. It's really good publicity, and the old saying, no such thing as bad publicity. I don't necessarily buy into. I think you can absolutely have negative publicity and absolutely have bad PR. So I would reserve judgment for it. I'm not a huge fan of these things. I think they're great for journalists and great for viewers and great for fans. But if you asked Eddie Howe or a lot of people around the club, if they want a camera crew following them, 24/7, I'm fairly certain they would. While they'll probably be used to it by now, I'm fairly certain that if it was their choice, they would say no.
Yeah, I just think it's more money in the coffers, and we will wait and see what is exactly in the coffers when it comes to the transfer window. Stephen Kennedy, he says he's at work, so he'll have to catch up. But he said, did either of you see Pickford's post-match interview? How unprofessional was he, and how much did he waffle like Steve Bruce? And he also wants to know what we made of Jurgen Klopp's outburst again. He truly gets away with murder. It's Ferguson-esque, and it's a way to influence refs for Liverpool's run-in. I'll start with Klopp first. I mean, I've watched his press conference this afternoon, and he was as apologetic as he can be, but he realizes that, you know, he's dropped a big clanger, and he probably will, you know, get some kind of punishment. But he is just over the top, isn't he? I think he's gone from probably a lot of people's, you know, loved manager from a club that you don't support to somebody who just gets on everyone's wick, you know, with his histrionics and the way that he goes on, throwing himself on the ground, and, you know, his bizarre comments. It's just crazy. What did you make of the interviews at the weekend?
I thought he was absolutely bang out of order. I thought it was really, really poor what he said. Completely lacking in any class whatsoever. I hope he gets the book thrown at him. I really do. You cannot go on like that as a manager to referees, to assistant referees, to fourth officials, to whoever. You can't go on like that and expect to get away with it. It sets a really bad example for fans, for players, for kids watching. It's out of order in some of his comments. He's backtracked as much as what he possibly could this afternoon, and rightly so. But he will get the book thrown at him for me. I think he'll get a lengthy touchline ban, you know, maybe 3 or 4 games. He's got history, you know. He's already had one touchline ban this season already, and a hefty fine. He'll get another hefty fine and another touchline ban, and rightly so. I think it was just childish, petty, lacking in any class whatsoever. And I put a tweet out over the weekend saying similar as what you've just said there, Steve. You know, for me, when Jurgen Klopp came into the Premier League, it was a breath of fresh air. It was an absolute breath of fresh air. And I think he is one of the greatest managers that the Premier League's seen. In the Premier League era, I know we're not, you know, only go back 30 years, but I'm not saying he's up there with Ferguson or Wenger or Mourinho or whatever, but he's a very, very good manager. What he's done at Liverpool in the dugout there, in terms of turning that club around, winning Premier League title against, you know, arguably the best side in Europe in Man City, or the best side that we've seen certainly over the last 20 years in Man City, in terms of winning the Champions League, reinvigorating the club, the connection that he has with the fan base, and how he buys into the whole club. Absolutely fantastic, an absolutely great manager. With, you know, he's virtually reinvented some, you know, tactics like gegenpressing and everything else like that, along with other German coaches. Don't get us wrong, but he's now in danger of being remembered and known for being an absolute clown, for being a whining, idiotic, ungracious, bad loser. He's getting a reputation for that as much as what he's getting is more than what his reputation for being a fantastic manager and leader and tactician. And that's sad for him. But you can't go on like that. His histrionics are just ridiculous.
Definitely are. And Pickford, you know, his interview, I mean, you don't expect anything more. He's you know, he gets stick all game from the Newcastle fans. He's just conceded a hatful of goals. And yeah, he's gonna be upset, isn't he?
I'll get stick for this, but I like Jordan Pickford. I think he's daft as approach. I think he's a character. I think you need people like that. As long as it doesn't go across the other side of the line, in terms of, you know, what we've just been talking there about Jurgen Klopp, for example. I don't mind a goalkeeper or a striker or a defender or whoever it is giving a little bit of stick back when for some of the abuse that they get. So, you know, they'll get some stick, give it a little bit back. He's a target of fun and ridicule for Newcastle fans, Jordan Pickford. But I think he makes me smile. I think he's just a normal lad. He gets carried away sometimes, like we all do around football. And, you know, yeah, maybe he could speak a little bit more eloquently in post-match interviews, or differently, or whatever. But then, you know, so could we all. He's fantastic. His penalty save yesterday was great. You know, did his research, had it all on the water bottle. Outfoxed James Maddison helped preserve a point for his team in a relegation battle. And he was getting stick for celebrating at half time, celebrating his penalty save. He's just made a crucial penalty save in a relegation 6-pointer. Why wouldn't you celebrate? If you score a goal, you'd celebrate. So I think Newcastle fans, like to highlight and like to pick on everything that Jordan Pickford does, and I understand why. And there's a definite amusement level there, but I think he's a really good goalkeeper, and I think I quite like his character as well. And I know I'll be in the minority, but there we go.
Yeah, Les says, but didn't Pickford tell players to kick one of our subs? Yeah, I mean, we saw that. It was highlighted, but no retrospective action took place. So, because you can't prove what he said, you just don't know. He could have been saying, have you seen the boots he's wearing? It could, there's plenty of ways out of that. And unless the referee or an official hears it, that's the way it is. And I agree, with regards to, your views on Pickford for England. Yeah, frustratingly, I still think he is the best keeper. But I would agree with the in-tune trader here. And Mackem speaking eloquently, Ross.
You get some. You do get some. I'm a big Newcastle fan, and I have been all my life. But I don't mind Jordan Pickford. I think he's a good character. He tries, Newcastle fans try to wind him up. He tries to wind other people up. It's part of the game. It's part of football. It's a little bit of niggle, a little bit of banter, a little bit of trying to get one up on each other. I think he's good. I don't mind him at all. I appreciate people don't, because of where he's from and because some of his antics as well. I totally get that, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Okay. Any sponsorship news, Ross? I mean, Chronicle runs a story today, essentially saying that we're very close now to the major sponsor of the football club being announced. And, just touching on the article, which has been written by Chief Sports Writer Lee Ryder. It says Newcastle United are edging ever closer to one of the most exciting and lucrative sponsorship deals in the club's history as discussions continue behind the scenes. Having accepted that they are locked in a deal with Northwest-based kit manufacturers Custori until 25-26 season, with the brand that looks after Andy Murray keen to stay on the Toon shirts, United Chiefs switched their attention to the main shirt sponsor last year. So obviously we know Fun 88 is on its way. Rumours abound that Newcastle United could be getting a major windfall from that. Is there any news?
Not that I'm aware of, other than what's been written and what's been reported. I think this is obviously a key part of Newcastle's strategy in terms of growing the club and being able to bring more revenue in. There's the sponsorship and the commercial arm of the club. We've said this before, has been pathetic. Hasn't grown and developed. Didn't show any signs of growth under Mike Ashley. If anything, it went backwards. So the new commercial team and owners that have come into Newcastle, in some ways I'm not saying it's an easy job, but they couldn't have done it. They couldn't have, not spotted what was needed, not being able to grow that. So, interestingly, a lot of thoughts were that it would be maybe a Saudi company that was coming in. There's reports that it's a Middle Eastern company that's going to come in as a new shirt sponsorship, and it could be a deal that is worth up to kind of £25 million a year. Which is great, huge money. I think the Fun 88 deal is only worth about £8 million a year. So you almost kind of, if those numbers are right, you're trebling your annual income from that. So it's much needed. It's something that the club has to have to be able to develop and have the spending power that they need to challenge some of the bigger boys in and around the top of the Premier League and across Europe. So hopefully that gets nailed on and announced fairly soon, and it all adds into Eddie Howe's transfer kitty, hopefully for the summer.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the TV, the TV broadcasting money is also something which can be a massive help to Newcastle United, and they're banking 126.65 million that they received for broadcast and central commercial revenues from the Premier League last season. And even in the US, which obviously now broadcasts football from the Premier League on a regular basis. And Newcastle have featured no less than 22 times out of the 33 Premier League games so far on NBC Universal's linear TV network. So, not only getting coverage, across Sky and getting a payday from that, but, it's going to build the brand, isn't it, globally, Ross?
No, absolutely, and the Chronicle's done a good piece on that. On Kieran Kelly's done a good piece speaking to media analysts, both here and in the US, about the kind of the profile and why Newcastle are featuring so much on TV. And it's you get great games, you get fantastic atmospheres at the stadium, and Newcastle, well, still a little way away, I suppose, from being everybody's second club in that sense, like, as they were under the early years of Kevin Keegan, and became everybody's kind of second club, or a lot of people's second club. They are a big box office draw, always have been, and this season, if you look at how many game times have been on TV, I think by the end of the season there'll probably been about 28, 29 times Newcastle have been shown live on TV, which is an incredible amount, and that all adds into the revenue and all adds into the pot. And as you say, Steve, it's raising the profile and raising the exposure of Newcastle abroad, especially in the US, where you can get a lot of investment and a lot of commercial revenue from. Going pre-season tournament over in the US will help as well. So things are looking very, very rosy on the pitch, but they're also looking really rosy off the pitch as well. Certainly a lot more encouraging and optimistic than on a commercial side than what they have done for many a year.
Lots of comments coming in about Castore. I did mention this on the show the other day, and I heard from an unconfirmed source, somebody saying, Derek, Steve, Castore until 2025. Can't understand why PIF don't just buy Castore. My understanding is the deal is ludicrous. It would cost Newcastle a vast amount of money to buy themselves out of it. And then there's another clause which would stipulate that there would be a percentage of any future retail sold at the club shop to go to whoever owns that company. That's a rumour. It's what I've heard. It's not confirmed in any way. But if that's the case, that would explain why PIF don't buy out. It's clearly a deal which they can't get out of, or it wouldn't be worth their while getting out of, which says a lot. Was that the last present Mike Ashley left for Newcastle United? Sounds like it, doesn't it? Could have been worse. Could have been Buckter. Back in those itchy strips in the 70s scarred me for life. But, it is what it is. We've just got to put up with it and just concentrate on the positives, getting that money in for the sponsorship on the shirt. And Doug says, do you think we're waiting for a confirmed Champions League spot before we get the sponsor in, as we are already guaranteed a European spot? I mean, I would imagine, regardless of which European competition we're in now, Ross, because we are in Europe, that is much we know now. But I don't think that really matters, does it? Champions League, Europa, it's exposure, and people will pay the price for European exposure on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the deal will be pretty much done and dusted, and maybe some of the smaller, finer details of it will still be left to be ironed out. But look, the profile of the club is so much higher than what it was just 12 months ago, certainly 2 years ago. So the higher profile the club has, the more times it's on TV, the bigger recognition and showing that it gets worldwide. It'll only help your commercial prospects. It'll only help the commercial team directors and guys there who, when they're going and pitching to potential sponsors, if you can offer them a brand that has so much more global appeal, worldwide appeal, that's getting more eyeballs on it than ever before, then it's only going to help with striking those deals and bring more money into Newcastle.
Yeah, Derek, I can't see them buying Castore. There'd be too much sour grapes. it's a deal which they clearly can't get out of. Why would they buy it either? You know, it's not for them. And I just genuinely feel that, you know, there will be an Adidas or a Nike in the background waiting to come in, but it means we'll probably have to wait another 2 seasons for that. So it is what it is. Can't get out of everything. Hi Ross, Liam Kennedy says you were a great boss, but was he a great student? Says Mr. Anderson.
Liam's a good lad, yeah. Liam, I was Liam's boss for a good few years. I could tell a few stories, which I won't on this platform. My hair used to be a lot darker than what it was before I started managing Liam. I'll say that much. But no, he's a great lad. Very, very good journalist and a good pal of mine as well.
And he's back tomorrow night, 6:00 on NUFC Matters. No Geordie's here. Geordie's there this week. We're going to go with Liam at 6 till 7. So you get a chance to ask Liam a few questions tomorrow night. Okay, I have managed to record the ads. They're slightly shorter. Here they are. A big shout out to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you enjoy the show, please hit the little thumb under the video and like the video. Click share to share to your other social media, or subscribe. It's free and we do 7 shows a week. If you want to become a member, you can click join underneath this video. There are different packages to suit all different pockets. And if you want to become a cult member, then put your smartphone over the QR code. It'll take you straight there to the website, which is nufcmatters.com. If you go in via the website, just click membership pack. What do you get for your money? You get a pen, you get a cup, you get a membership card and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, we are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this show. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a virtual donation today. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. An evening with Peter Beardsley at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com. Or go to Voucher and get a 40% discount. Our end of season due is the 27th of May at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Gavin Peacock takes place on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that event. And the following night, Gavin will be at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Go to their website for ticket information. We've got a vast range of t-shirts, merchandise and memorabilia available at our website. The Isaac t-shirt is doing well. Go to nufcmatters.com to buy one today. Okay, still half an hour to go. Anyone's got any questions, get them in like Steve did. Do you think free agents like Brayton, Diaz, Marcus Thuram, Tielemans will come into our thinking this summer, Ross?
I think free agents will come into the thinking. I'm not sure about those 3 players in particular. I don't think I'd be surprised if any of those 3 came. Maybe it's 2 arms, maybe it's an option, but I'd be surprised if the other 3 ended up at St James's Park. But I think Newcastle are wise enough to realise that they need to consider all options, and if bringing in somebody as a free agent frees up a little bit of money elsewhere, Newcastle will still be working on a budget. They're still, it's not a bottomless pit of money. So if they can save a little bit of money here and bring in a high quality free transfer who can improve the squad, or Eddie Howe believes can improve the squad, then absolutely they'll be looking at them. Yeah.
Steve also says, any Championship or SPL players you think will be good signings for us?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I do think that There are still some gems in the Championship in particular. SPL, there's a lot of, Scotland's still a very good breeding ground for young players who come through, and Newcastle have been linked with a number of young Scottish players over recent months. I think it's an area, along with Ireland, where they'll keep an eye on in terms of bringing in some of the best, 15 to 18-year-olds from Scotland to maybe boost the squad below that. Outside of that, you still get one or two in Scotland who are really real gems. You saw what happened with Virgil van Dijk when he left Celtic and went to Southampton, and then on to Liverpool for 75 million. So there is some good players there. Championship, very much the same, but a lot of the time with the Championship you get players who are good but untested at the kind of the top level, and because of the finances that are on offer, you get players who haven't been tested but are still going to cost 20 million, 25 million. So it's a difficult market at times, the Championship, but there's some great players there. The lad at Bristol City, Alex Scott, is one who Newcastle and others have monitored and kept an eye on. Really talented midfielder, and there's a number of others elsewhere. Dare I say it, you sometimes you look just down the road and see some of the players who are young players at Sunderland. Managerial, I know he's on loan from Man United, but he's ripping up the Championship. There is some good young players in that Championship. Whether Newcastle feel that they're right at this particular time, given that they're going into Champions League and in the profile of the club and the demands on the club, whether they feel that they need that right now, or they want to go with a bit more oven ready type of player, to quote a phrase. That we'll wait and see, but I do think there's some quality in there, definitely.
Hey, you've been reading my script, Ian. He says, Ross, are you excited with Lewis Miley signing his first professional contract on his 17th birthday? He looks class, and he's a localish lad from Concert.
Yeah. I think it's a really, really great news for Lewis. Great news for his family. A lot of my friends are friends with his family, and they all speak very highly of them and say what a great family they are. And Lewis has obviously made a real impression on Newcastle's first team, not just on the 23s, on the first team. So no, he's still only 17, and he's got his whole future ahead of him. Hopefully he can continue to progress, and I'd love to see another youngster coming through the academy, coming through the youth setup and into the first team. Like we've seen recently with Sean Longstaff and Elliot Anderson, and Paul Dummett was on the bench again on Sunday. So great to see young lads doing really well and getting rewarded for it, and he's hopefully got a fantastic career ahead of him.
Yeah, and he's already featured. You mentioned the first team. He featured on the bench for Bournemouth. He played in the Dubai tournament as well. So great. Congratulations to the young lad. We hope he does really, really well. Barry said, would you cash in on ASM for Maddison? I mean, you would imagine there might be an outgoing. We've spoken about this in depth on the show for months now. ASM, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Recent performances prior to injury, he's been back. He's been back to his best, but we haven't seen him for a few weeks, and of course, it fuels speculation, whether it be in the media or social media. So ASM, what do you think's going there? And we clearly will make some money off him if we do decide to sell him.
For me, Steve, I would cash in. I would, and that's just a personal opinion. That's just my view. That's what I would do. I think he's a good player. He's very, very talented, enigmatic but charismatic. Gets fans excited, but also gets them frustrated. I imagine he's exactly the same with teammates, in the coaching staff. I think Newcastle have got to keep progressing. And is ASM in your starting 11 now? And I know that's not what it's all about. It's about having squad depth and everything else like that. But Newcastle at some point are going to have to keep. They can't just keep spending money. You know, they can't just keep buying players. They're going to have to occasionally sell a few players and move a few players on and bring in some money so that it balances the books slightly. I know Newcastle are a super rich club and the commercial arm is going to be expanded, and etc. etc. But we come back to FFP. You've got to still have a little bit of balance on your account sheets. So you look at who are the saleable assets at the club, who potentially aren't in that first 11, 12, 13, 14. I think ASM is the obvious one. I think you could get some good money if you decide to sell him. Would it weaken the squad if he goes? I don't know. If everybody's fitting in flying, where does he get in? Does he get in on that left hand side ahead of Joe Linton, ahead of Anthony Gordon, ahead of Alexander Isak if you want to play him out wide left? I just think he's at the minute he's a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and I wouldn't be surprised if the club cashes in on him in the summer because they feel like they've got other alternatives, other options, and they can bring in a little bit of money.
Another interesting name there that Ian's mentioned, Yankuba Minte, seems a done deal. Chronicle have been heavily covering this one as well. Of course, he's enjoyed a bit of a breakthrough at Danish outfit Dance Bold Club, and 5 goals and 7 assists from 17 appearances. He's a winger, and I think he's a Gambian, isn't he? So yeah, a few bits and bobs I've seen in the newspapers about this Chronicle in particular. What's your take on him? Another good young player.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about him really, if I'm being honest. I think he's, I've seen his name mentioned and I've read probably the same things that other people have read. So I don't know too much about him, but it goes back to the point that we've made, earlier today, but also on previous shows, when Newcastle are going to scout around the world for some really good young talent. Now that might be in Scotland, it might be in Ireland, it might be in Brazil, it might be in France. It'll be everywhere. They want to bring in some of the best young talents so that they can then develop them and potentially, you might have to spend, 15-20 million on a young player, but if he develops that the way that the club expect or hope that he will, then he could be worth 30, 40, 50, 60 million in 2 or 3 years time. If not, is a potential sell-on value. You've seen it with Chelsea. They've gone a little bit too far the other way for me in that they've almost stockpiled a lot of players and then just farmed them out on loan right, left and centre. But I do think that Newcastle want to improve their youth setup. I don't think they're 100% happy with the way that the academy and elements of it in terms of the progress of young players coming through is being. So they do want to, they've appointed a lot of scouts. They've revamped that scouting element and recruitment side of the operation, certainly at academy level. And like I've said, you can't just keep going out and buying players for 50, 60, 70 million. You're going to have to try and bring in a couple of bargains like a Grand Qual, like maybe Minter as well, and 1 or 2 others, and develop it from there. And yeah, that question, that point from Steve there about Brighton's transfer model, it's that is a fantastic example. You look at some of the players that they've brought in for buttons, for peanuts, and that was under Dan Ashworth's watch. And the people that they brought in, like Matoma, like Alexis McAllister, Ewan Ferguson brought in from Ireland. These types of players who they can bring in relatively unheralded for relatively modest fees, develop them, give them the platform, bring them on, and look at how Brighton are run now. It's a model for everybody.
Certainly is, yeah. And sadly, they always have to sell, to progress. Bit like the Bournemouth model that we saw under Eddie Howe, but gradually players brought through in the academy and then sold on. Brighton seem to be in a very similar kind of, zone at the moment. And difference is with Newcastle, if they can bring people through the academy, if they're good enough, they'll play and force their way into the team. Eddie Howe encourages youth, but they won't have to sell because, they have a big fan base, a big ground, it's only going to get bigger and hopefully go on to win trophies and become more and more successful. So it's exciting times at Newcastle. It really is. We keep saying it, but it really is. Tom says, is there any news on Serge Milinkovic-Savic? According to reports in Italy, we are chasing the midfielder. It is coming up the silly season. 5 games to go. We'll be covering this over the next couple of months. People know how much I love the transfer window. We still end up doing 7 shows a week talking about it. I've got to be honest, I've not even heard of this link. But Tom clearly thinks there's something, something in it. What's your views on that, Ross? Are you the same as me?
Yeah, he's been linked. He's been linked a few times. Milinkovic-Savic. He's a I think Serbian midfielder at Lazio, and he's been linked a few times. I don't know if it's one of them where it smells like agent talk. It's got a whiff of agents around it. Looks like he's after a move. I think he's 28, 29 now. Talented midfielder, but other than that, I don't know too much. He'd probably cost thick end of 50 million. Personally, I would be avoiding the Serie A and the Italian market at the minute. I don't think there's value there. I think there's a lot of issues around players and their valuations, shall we say. I'd be avoiding that market personally, but I don't know any more than that.
Yeah, Trulls is certainly the loyalist ASM fan we have in our chat these days, and always has a counter argument to anyone who doesn't like ASM. Trulls, I've always tried to be balanced with the ASM. I've hammered him when he needs to be. I've rightly praised him for his recent form. Unfortunately, he's injured a lot. And I think that's why people, seemingly don't want to have, ASM at the club anymore. But I agree with a lot of the points that you make, Trulls. I also agree, Chris Banks puts to get a player of the ASM's quality would cost 60 to 80 million. Keep him as a squad player. That would be great if he wanted to stay as a squad player. I don't think he does. Paul says he's injured 70% of the season. Trulls, getting the age right is important when you're having an argument. I've got to be perfectly honest. Isaac was injured for half the season as well, says Chris. It's fascinating, the ASM split in the support. It will always drive people up the wall. It will always, change things for people. What I will say is that I find it strange. His social media stuff that he puts out there can often conflict, what Eddie Howe was saying. Sometimes, I guess Callum Wilson will say stuff on his podcast, which Eddie Howe might say one thing and he says another. I've heard Eddie Howe on numerous occasions go, I don't listen to it. I've not heard anything about it. So you're always going to get these problems. You're always going to get these issues. Ian, thank you for a question. He says, would Ross consider wearing a Ben Jacobs style funky Nana's jumper to match his sparkling personality?
I've never bbeen described as having a sparkling personality, so I assume that's a heavy dose of sarcasm. I assume it's a heavy dose of sarcasm there, but maybe I'll come on and I'll come on in everything. If people are gonna say I've got a sparkling personality, I'll wear a nice tutu, green and pink tutu for the end of the season. If I'm
Ben Jacobs hasn't got
a sparkling personality, so
Ben Jacobs has never gone that far. David says players will be throwing themselves at us now, but we don't want to take on the guys who give us the knockback last year. We want fighters. Good point, David. I really, really agree with that. And Ian says he loves you, Ross. So there you go. Get yourself along to Wickham next season. Get yourself a season ticket, Ian. That's what I'd suggest. That'll keep Ross happy. Sam Allardyce is back in football. We are led to believe it's all but done. What on earth are Leeds thinking of? He's not going to change things in 4 days, Ross, is he? 4 games.
You'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised. Look, anybody who follows me on social media knows I've got strong opinions on Sam Allardyce, and I always have done, and I always will do. He's certainly not for me. He's somebody who he's had a fantastic career out of football, and fair play to him for doing that. But just as a person, as a personality, as a manager, he's not my cup of tea whatsoever. I'll be honest, I didn't really care who stayed up or went down. But if Allardyce comes into Leeds, then I'll maybe make an exception and reconsider. It's an odd move. It's an odd move, but it's a sign of desperation, I think. Interestingly, Leeds aren't even in the relegation zone at the minute, so he could keep them up in with 4 games, and his first home game, if he does get the job, his first home game at Allen Road is against Newcastle United. So that could be an interesting clash, but a bit of a gamble. 4 games to go, if that's the case. It is an odd move.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd move. Certainly, one thing's for certain: Sam Allardyce will be getting paid handsomely for it, whatever happens. And again, it's just a short-term appointment. He's coming in to do the job, and there's no plans to keep him on, in the future. Which, I just find that bizarre. I really do. I just don't understand why they would even consider doing that. I may be wrong, but I just can't see how on earth he, how he will change things in four games. And they've been playing a little interview with him, which is from 2017, how to stay up. And they're saying that he's got a great record of keeping teams up, but he didn't do that well at West Brom with the West Brom team, did he? That was his last. One. There's another player linked with Newcastle, and you can find out all about this on the Chronicles website. It's an article by George Bennett. Newcastle monitoring Fikayo Tomori, who is he's at AC Milan, an England centre back, and this is a story which originated from 90 Minutes. He's been in Italy for 2.5 years. He initially joined AC Milan from Chelsea on loan in January 2021. And it's funny because I have said on this programme before that, with the age of Dan Burn, with the age of Fabian Schär, Newcastle will certainly be looking to recruit in the back 4. We've already signed a Scottish centre half, slightly younger than this guy, of course. So is this an option, do you think, Ross, in the summer window?
Possibly. I mean, Tomori's a good young player, and he's got a lot of experience now, having spent the last couple of seasons over in Italy in AC Milan. Been in and around the England squad, never quite broken through, and you always get the feeling that Gareth Southgate just doesn't like him for one reason or another, or doesn't think he's quite as good as what some pundits and some others think of him. But you're right, Steve, that there will be some defensive reinforcements brought in this summer. Fabian Schär's wrong side of 30, Dan Burns. I think he's still got plenty left in him, Dan Burn, as has Schär, but I do think they want to bring a couple of younger sort of centre halves in, and certainly maybe a right-sided centre half who can contest with Schär for a place. So it'll be interesting to see who's on the wish list and who they can manage to bring in. And someone like Tomori's played Champions League football. He's got some good experience under his belt at AC Milan. So it could well be one that has some legs. But I think Newcastle will be linked with a number of centre halves over the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. It's like the start of the A team. This, Chris, if in danger of going down, bring in Sam and guarantee it. Yeah, all I can ever think of when I hear Sam Allardyce's name is the GIF that's on Twitter and Facebook and all social media platforms that use GIFs, and just the kids standing behind Sam Allardyce going, "You don't know what you're doing." And I'm horrendously scarred from Sam Allardyce's time at Newcastle. I've got to be perfectly honest. Blackburn game, I think we were 3-0 down at half time. It's the only game that I've never gone back for the second half. I actually stood at the bar at Blackburn until they pulled the shutters down and just drank until I went home, because I just couldn't be bothered to watch any more Sam Allardyce football. Awful. I think
that's part of the thing with it, Steve. So his results. You can spin stats and results and whatever and say that it's that he's done this and he's got this team into mid-table and he's saved this one and whatever. But pretty much every club that he's been to, when he's left, fans have been happy, because that it's not just about results. That's football is more than just results on the pitch. It's about the feel. It's about enjoyment. It's about passion. It's about having a connection with your club. It's about so much more than just what the final score is at the end of 90 minutes. I know that is important. Bear in mind, by the way, Sam Allardyce has only got a 33% win ratio in the Premier League, which is below Alan Pardew and probably level with Steve Bruce. So he's not that great as well. But you speak to West Ham fans, you speak to Newcastle fans, you speak to Blackburn fans, and even Everton fans. You got Everton up to 8th, but they weren't happy with the style of football. They weren't happy with everything else that went around it. So there's more to football than just that, and that's part of the issue with Sam Allardyce, is how he leaves supporters feeling about watching their team.
Okay, this is a good one. Steve says, Ross, what's Wycombe's budget for next season? I think the rules about Wycombe's budget is you don't talk about Wycombe's budget. Is that right? It's a bit like the rules for Fight Club.
It is. It's something like that. So yeah, we'll get our budget finalised over the next few weeks. Maybe offer some of the players a couple extra packets of pork scratchings if they decide to sign on for the new season. So yeah, it's a long season, just about finished now. Had the last game, a charity game on Sunday, which we raised. We helped raise a couple of thousand, £1,700 I think was the last tally for Alzheimer's Society, for our captain Ross Pearth's charity. So that was a great day for us on Sunday. We've got a presentation on Saturday, and then hopefully I can enjoy a few weeks off, Steve, before the season starts again.
Well deserved, mate. Well deserved. Newcastle play Arsenal this coming Sunday at 4:30 start, live on Sky Sports. The game is a sellout. Arsenal, of course, chasing the Premier League title, and they will hope that they can kickstart that again tonight with a win over Chelsea. Supermac and Gibbo will be doing their respective talk-ins. Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot at 2, returning at 6:45. Gibbo will be with Ando at Pumphrey's at 2 o'clock only. Jamal Lascelles won't feature due to a calf injury. Sean Longstaff with a foot injury, and ASM hamstring could both return, which is great news after all the rumours about Sean Longstaff potentially breaking his foot. As for Arsenal, early team news there. El Neni and Tomiyasu are out, and Saliba is doubtful. Newcastle, of course, got a full week to prepare for the game. Arteta's side, of course, as I mentioned, are playing Chelsea tonight. On the road, Arsenal have won a division high, 11 Premier League games. They have drawn 3 on the road. They're also the highest Premier League away scorers with 33 goals. Referee is Chris Kavanagh. This is his second appointment of the season involving us. And that first one was a 2-1 victory at Brentford. His most recent appearance in the middle at St James's Park was the 1-1 draw with Villa during lockdown. All 6 of his Newcastle games since then have been at away grounds. VAR is Andy Madeley. And just over to you, Ross, really, to find out what your views are and what your feeling is for that game at the weekend.
It's an interesting one because you're going up against the league leaders, team that's been challenging for the title and possibly the best team for the majority of this season, and you're coming up against them and you're relatively confident. That's certainly how I feel. I feel pretty confident going into this one. I felt confident against Spurs, and I've got a similar feeling about this one. I think Arsenal have had a fantastic season, and the job that Mikel Arteta has done there. Again, I know he's a manager that polarises opinions, and some of his behaviour on the touchline isn't always the best. But looking at the job that he's done, certainly over the last couple of seasons, it's been absolutely fantastic. He's got a young team playing some really good football, and challenging Man City, pushing them as far as what they have done. Albeit that the wheels have come off slightly over the last kind of month or so, but done a great job. But I just think because those wheels have come off, because they're a little bit in the doldrums, I fancy Newcastle to turn them over. Similar performance maybe as to what they produced against Man United at home, where the intensity, the pace, the atmosphere, the aggression, and everything else that Newcastle showed would potentially be too much for Arsenal. So look, they're a great team. They've got a fantastic manager, and I do mean that. I do think he's a great manager, but I think this is a game Newcastle can go into full of confidence and get 3 points from. Prediction? I'm going to go for another 2-0.
2-0. Great stuff, Ross. As always, I look forward to catching up with you again next Tuesday. Until then, take care, mate.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.